It is perfectly okay to slow down. That's on the agenda. That's what nature does. But it's not okay to be unconsciously drawn down, because we are not mushrooms. We are not mice. We are not rodents. We are human beings. In us, the spark of consciousness has that capacity for self-reflection and, dare I say, for self-illumination. That's the significance of Diwali. We have gathered here during the time when certain very important celebrations would take place in entire Indian subcontinent. As most of you know, we are approaching the Diwali or Deepavali, as it is also known, Festival of Lights. So it's a very big, today called Hindu festival, but it is not only pertinent to Hindu or those who are followers of Hindu religion, it is just as important to Buddhists, Jaini, Sikh, and many others. It's a very ancient, I would say pagan celebration which belongs to the entire Northern Hemisphere. I absolutely have no doubts that the Festival of Lights was celebrated here, where we are right now, in Eastern Europe, in Poland, across the entire Eurasian continent. Why? Because although we may speak of it today as a religious festival, and it has distinctive religious connotations, it is, in fact, what marks the departure towards winter. It falls, according to the Vedic calendar, on the 13th day of the lunar calendar, known as Kartika Trayadoshi. And it is known as what marks the change of the position of the sun in relation to its influence in Northern Hemisphere at large, which means it's the time when winter really sets in. An entire life goes into a mode of hibernation. It is also known and calculated from the time of the last harvest. Obviously, this also in itself marks that transition from harvest or the end of harvest to particular phases of the moon as we transit into the time when everything in nature goes into hibernation, into sleep. Nobody would plant anything during this time because the soil itself rests. We can see it all around us. Leaves are turned rust and gold as they fall down on the ground, only to become fertile ground, and decompose and contribute to that complex ecostructure, ecosystem of the forest. So this Festival of Lights, what effectively speaking it is, now, if we are to speak of it from the esoteric, spiritual point of view, is a victory of light over darkness. So it has several here dimensions that we can speak of simultaneously, several threads. On one hand, for the ancient people, for people who lived very, very close, I would say intimately connected to the land, to the geographical location, this would mark an important time when the change of the relationship between the sun, the main source of energy on the planet, would be of a different kind, because every day there will be less and less of sunlight, less and less of that source of energy. As the sun strikes against the surface of the northern hemisphere at a different angle, all the way to the winter solstice, until it will reach the darkest night and the longest night before the days will then start to grow again, the light days. So it's the natural time of slowing down. Everything in nature slows down. And because of that, there is this propensity for our biology, because we are not just part of nature, we are nature in the body, as far as the body is concerned. Our body's propensity is to slow down. With that said, being human beings, we are no longer can be comparable to mice, bears, rabbits and wolves, or whoever else inhibited the land. We have and carry in us the spark of consciousness. So therefore, from that point of view, from that perspective, this festival marks an important departure, just as there's propensity for everything to slow down, to go in a mode of being under a certain pressure, so as not to get or easily sliding into depression, sliding into that modes of laziness, inertia. Something needed to be brought out. Something needed to be infused. Something needed to be brought as a reminder that we are the light above all else. The light that illumines this body. So we are, even though subjected to bodily rhythms and functions and all that, we are not its hostages. So that relationship has to be here reevaluated during this time, and a conscious effort, therefore, a conscious effort is made to remain alert at the time when everything seems to go into a mode of slumber. You see? Sense that in the nature, sense that in everywhere, sense that even as your cells communicate to you, how it is that much more difficult for any effort right now. Everything requires that extra few cups of coffee, extra something to spin you up, extra supplements, extra something, because there is this propensity. So the festival of lights, this Diwali, still today, we'll speak about some of maybe ways of how it has been reinterpreted for a modern people, even in India. But that's another story. If we are to stick with the underlying reasons of what Diwali or Deepavali represents, then it is not pertinent to those born into the families of aforementioned Oriental religions and traditions. All of us share one fact, that we are in this body, living in Northern Hemisphere. Therefore, the Festival of Light is just as significant to us here right now in Poland, or wherever we may have found ourselves to be right now, being in Northern Hemisphere, just as it is for the people of India or Indian subcontinent. So perhaps this will be a very fitting entrance into our week-long immersion, because Diwali, which begins on October 31st, and from there on would last for 5 days. I'm not custodian to the tradition to give you exact puja times and the days and the deities associated with each of the 5 days. Suffice to say that all this marks this very important time when we uplift ourselves from within, so as not to get subjected to that inertia of the winter time. And it is for that reason it is associated through a physical act of lighting the lanterns, the lights, lamp oils, like in India. The celebration of Diwali and Deepavali is known to be that. Every household will have as many lamps lit as it is possible. And also it will be celebrated widely across the entire subcontinent. Because the significance of that is that we now shift our attention, which perhaps in summer months can be taken for granted as all our cells dancing in delight with the sunlight, towards the winter months of hibernation, if not death, before its inevitable rebirth, so as to remain awake, alert throughout that time, throughout the time of hibernation. This is the importance of Diwali. So in the act of the, let's say, somatic significance, we light the candle, we light the lantern, we light the oil lamp, as that metaphor. And on the internal level, we are leaning now on that spark of consciousness that all of us carry in equal measure, and it is therefore our duty to tend to that light as we go through the winter months, so as not to get subjected to all sorts of what will otherwise hamper our evolution. This is the importance and perhaps main significance of why Diwali is and could be rightfully considered to be transcending cultural consensus here. It is just as valid to us here, born into whatever household, whether this is Christian, Muslim, practicing Judaism, or agnosticism, or whatever atheistic base that we prefer. It is simply a matter of how things are. It is the reality of the situation. It is pertinent to the geographical location and the influence that the planet Sun here exerts and exercises in its diminishing quality on our bodies, so as not to get subjected to that temporary pressure that inevitably a price of being in the body. We reignite that, and so we shift consciously the attention. So even if we are to go into a state of following the nature's pace, slowing down, that is, in all our otherwise hasty pace, we do that consciously, not because we are subjected to inertia. Do you see the difference? Do you see the difference? Do you hear the difference? It is perfectly okay to go into a state of hibernation. It is perfectly okay to slow down. That's on the agenda. That's what nature does. But it's not okay to be unconsciously drawn down, because we are not mushrooms. We are not mice. We are not rodents. We are human beings. In us, the spark of consciousness has that capacity for self-reflection and, dare I say, for self-illumination. That's the significance of Diwali. If you want some mythological, law-related associations, and there are plenty, of course, it is associated, of course, with, and today primarily being emphasized in its connection to the goddess Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth. And therefore, the shift is being made of the significance of Diwali as the festival of light in its association with wealth and prosperity. We can't blame the tendencies that are imposed by modern way of life, where perhaps the main significance of that festival is somehow being eclipsed, for the real deity to be celebrated during the Diwali is the god Dhanvantari, the one who gave humanity the nectar of immortality as he stepped out of the ocean of creation and carried that vessel of Amritam, Amrit Kalash, that Ayurvedic formulation. It's that attempt to recreate that at least at the level of herbal combination, which purportedly consists of some 60 plus herbs to make this as that equivalent of what keeps the body in check, in perfect health and balance. Another interesting and, let's say, worthy of mentioning, of course, connotation and correlation is that what Diwali is known to every Hindu folk, it marks the time of Rama's victory over Ravana, the greatest demon of the time. Therefore, victory of light over darkness, and rescuing Sita, beloved wife of Rama, from Lanka and bringing her back to Ayodhya. So that's the another, if you will, mythological significance of Diwali. It is a reminder, a universal reminder that light always prevails. Light always wins over darkness. It is particularly significant for us, I feel, here, personally, during this time that we all find ourselves in, during the predicaments we are faced with, when sometimes our faith in goodness of human race evaporates as we stand in the face of what is happening on a daily basis. So let this serve as a reminder of that universal order, universal way of how things are by virtue of how they are. And that is, light always prevails. So the significance, the spiritual significance of Diwali, the festival of light, is that reminder that light always prevails. That should fill our heart with that unshakable faith, shraddha, in the way things are, so that we carry that light brightly, without it being dimmed somehow, without it being somehow subjected to these doubts in the capacity to rise above, no matter how harsh and how inhumane the circumstances we find ourselves in. This is Diwali. So, as we're coming closer to the celebration, all I could say, or all I could add is, happy Diwali, everyone, as it comes in a matter of days, hours. And I am very, very happy that our week here has coincided with that celebration. So, I think that makes it Thursday, October 31st, so we can perhaps sing together something to the glory of that day, whatever we'll choose, speak like a mantra. And for now, I thought, let this serve as an entrance, that impromptu opening into our week-long program.